Welcome to the .NET Excel Library tutorial. In this video, I will show you how to build an AI-driven Excel summarizer using the Syncfusion .NET Excel Library. This covers creating a C# console application, reading Excel files, and generating summaries using Azure OpenAI. The prerequisites for this tutorial are Visual Studio 2022 or later, and the .NET 9.0 SDK or later, and the necessary credentials for your Azure OpenAI account. Now, let's move on to creating the console application in Visual Studio. I open Visual Studio and select Create a new project from the dashboard. From the list of templates, select Console App and click Next to continue. Then, I enter the project name and click Next again. I proceed with the default configuration and click Create to generate the application. Project is now ready to use. I open the NuGet Package Manager and navigate to the Browse tab. I search for the Syncfusion XLSIO NET Core package. Click Install and choose Apply to add the package to the solution. Then, I search for Azure AI OpenAI and click Install. This enables the .NET application to connect to Azure OpenAI models to generate AI-powered summaries. This is the input document I will use in this example. It contains monthly sales data for multiple regions from January to May. Now, I open the program CS file and import the required namespaces for the application. The Syncfusion XLSIO package is used to work with Excel files, specifically for reading Excel data. The Azure AI OpenAI package is used to connect the application to Azure OpenAI services. The OpenAI chat namespace serves as a communication bridge between the application and the AI model. The system client model is used for API authentication, and system text is used for handling string operations efficiently. Next, I create a variable to store the Excel file path. I define a method called extractData_as_text, which extracts data from an Excel file and returns it as text. Inside this method, I initialize an instance of the Excel engine and create an iApplication instance. I set the default version to XLSX and open the workbook using the Open method. I then create a string builder object to store the extracted data efficiently. I use a for each loop to iterate through each worksheet in the workbook. For each worksheet, I append the worksheet name to the string builder using the append line method. Next, I retrieve the used range of the worksheet, which represents the cells that contain data. I use a for loop to iterate through each row, and inside it, another for loop to iterate through each column. Inside the loop, I retrieve the cell value and append it to the string builder. I then call the append line method to move to the next row. After completing the row and column iterations, call append line to add spacing between worksheets. I return the complete Excel content as a string. In the main method, I use a try-catch block to handle runtime errors. Inside the try block, I define a variable and call the extractData_as_text method to retrieve and store the data. After the data is successfully read, I print a confirmation message in the console. Now, the Excel data has been successfully read. Next, to send the data to the AI and generate a summary, I define a method called summarizedData that uses Azure OpenAI to summarize the extracted text. To configure Azure OpenAI, 3 details are required: the API key, endpoint URL, and model name. These are already set up in my Azure OpenAI resource. Then, I create an instance of Azure OpenAI client with the endpoint URL and API key, which is used to establish a connection with the Azure OpenAI service. Next, I create a chat client using the getChatClient method by providing the model name. This acts as the communication layer between the application and the AI model Next, I create a chat completion request. In this request, I define a system chat message, which provides instructions to the AI model, and a user chat message that contains the Excel data to be summarized. The AI model processes these messages and generates a summary. I then return the generated summary from the response. After defining this method, I invoke it in the main method, store the returned summary, and print the message, summary from OpenAI, along with the generated summary in the console. Before viewing the output, the overall workflow is as follows. The Syncfusion Excel Library reads the Excel file, extracts the data, converts it into text, and sends it to Azure OpenAI. The AI then processes the data and returns a summary. Finally, I save and run the application. As you can see, the Excel document summary is displayed successfully. That's all for the video. I have shown how to build an AI-driven Excel summarizer using the Syncfusion .NET Excel Library. You can download the working example for this video from the GitHub link in the description below. I have also shared a link to learn how to obtain a free license key for our document SDK if you are eligible for our community license. If you found this video helpful, like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching.